السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Class of Tafseer Hujurat, inshallah. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه وبعد. So inshallah, the last ayah we covered was the 12th ayah, where we talked about backbiting, and we talked about spying on people, and we talked about assuming negatively of our Muslim brothers and sisters. So now we're going to go to the 13th ayah, the 13th verse of the Quran. It's a very famous verse, where most of us are familiar with this verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He says, O mankind, we have created you from male and female, and we made you into peoples and tribes so that you may know one another. Verily, the most noble from amongst you is the most pious. Verily, Allah is all-knowing, all-aware. I want to make a point on the Arabic. The reason why I said peoples, usually you hear nations and tribes. The word sha'ub is the plural of the word sha'b. Sha'b is the furthest back they used to go in their lineage. So qabila is your tribe. So for example, Quraysh was the qabila. The person who founds the sha'b is the person that all of Quraysh and all of the cousin tribes around Quraysh, they all will go back to that one person. It's like the origin of the ethnicity, right? So the origin of the ethnicity of Hijazi Arabs would be their sha'b, whatever that is. So that's why I translate it as peoples. It can be translated ethnicities, peoples, races, so on and so forth. It's the furthest back they would go when tracing back their ethnicities. And then the qabila would be where kind of your tribe is, your specific culture will be your qabila. So the specific culture of Quraysh, for example, in Mecca. This verse is very famous, and I want to talk about why this verse came down. And there's a few different opinions as to why the verse came down, and you'll get to see how clearly this verse is regarding racism once you look at the cases in which this verse came down. So the first one is about a Sahabi, in fact. And remember, the Sahaba, they're not perfect people. They have they grew up in a culture of ignorance. And they grew up in a culture with racism and misogyny and all these different things. So they continued with that even while into Islam, because as they were learning, as they were going through Islam, through their own development, they had to tackle these particular issues. Thabit ibn Qais made a remark one time when referring to someone who had refused to let him to scoot over so he can have a sit in the majlis, right? And he said, when mentioning the person, he said, "What, the son of so and so?" And the narrators, they say so and so not because he said so and so. It's because they don't want to mention who the person was, because he was obviously saying the remark in a negative way. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Who is so and so? Who mentioned the person so and so?" And the Thabit raised his hand. He said, "It was me." And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Look at all of the people in this majlis, all their faces. What do you see?" He says, "I see white, black, red." Right? The Prophet ﷺ then responded. He said, "You're not better than any one of these people, except if you are better in your taqwa." Right? He says you're not better than any of these people unless you're better than them in religion and God consciousness. So, I mean, clearly this verse is regarding something having to do with race, and during the the pre-Islamic Arabs, they had a culture of boasting about their lineage. I am the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, and you're the son of that person. So I'm better than you because you're from that person's family. And they used to carry this arrogance and pride based on who their parents were. The second one, there's three reasons I want to mention. The second one has to do with when Fath Makkah happened, and Bilal was told to give the adhan. And you really get to see the significance of Bilal's giving the adhan when you get to read the responses of the people in Mecca when they saw that Bilal was giving the adhan. One person, his name was Atab ibn Asad. He said when he saw Bilal giving the adhan, Alhamdulillah that Allah took my father before this happened so he didn't have to see this. He said, Alhamdulillah, Allah took my father before this day so he didn't have to see this. Imagine. It was so I don't know the word to use. It was so distasteful to him that he was glad his father had died earlier. Another person who was in that same group, they were all kind of together. It was a bunch of big shots from Quraysh. He said, could Muhammad not find someone else other than that Black Crow? Black Crow is a really racist term for the back then. Back then, that was an extremely racist term that was used for African slaves. Right? So couldn't they find someone better than him? There was a bunch. This was just two of them that I said, but you'll find a lot of different statements similar to this from different people from amongst Mecca when they saw Bilal giving the adhan. And in fact, when the Prophet ﷺ heard of this, he called them. He called them to him, and then this verse was revealed. And then he admonished them and told them, and he lectured them about how now that Islam is here, these things like favoritism of tribes, one person being another just because of his lineage or race or ethnicity or so on and so forth, that's gone. These are all aspects of Jahiliyyah. These are all aspects of when you were in the days of ignorance, and we need to work to get past these things. The last one is a beautiful story, and you get to really see the character of the Prophet ﷺ in this last one. And it's the story of a African slave who was in Medina. They were in the marketplace. Prophet ﷺ was walking through the marketplace, and he heard an African slave he was on sale, and he called out. He said, whoever wants to buy me, there's one condition. Okay? You cannot stop me from praying behind the Prophet ﷺ in his masjid. Right? That was his condition, and he yelled it out so everybody could hear. That particular person would go to the masjid for every single salah and would always pray behind the Prophet ﷺ. To the point that one day he wasn't there, and the Prophet ﷺ said, hey, what happened to so-and-so? Right? What happened to our brother, our African brother? And they said, well, he's sick. So the Prophet ﷺ prayed salat, and after that he took all the Sahaba, he said, look, we got to go and visit him. So they went and they visited him, and they kept him company for a little while. Eventually, few days pass, and the Prophet ﷺ goes and he asks the owner, he says, hey, what happened? He's still not back at the masjid. And he said, he hasn't gotten any better, he's only gotten worse. In fact, his lips have now started to change color. So he was getting close to death. And the Prophet ﷺ, he went, once again, he called the Sahaba, he said, we're going. We have to go meet him, we got to go visit our brother. They went, they visited him, and he was there. Prophet ﷺ was there while he died. All the man died on his deathbed. The Prophet ﷺ then personally took the responsibility of washing clothing and burying the Sahabi. And when the Muhajirun and the Ansar started seeing this, they were confused. They're like, why is the Prophet ﷺ paying so much attention to this person, right? Well, the Muhajirin were like, we gave up all of our wealth and migration, left our families, but the Prophet said no, because he told us to. And the Ansar were like, hey, we opened up our city to him, and we fought in his battles with him. Why? Well, what's so special about this guy? And then this verse was revealed. So clearly, this verse is addressing issues regarding race and such, and these are extremely important issues, and these are issues that the Muslim community to this day is still struggling with, and it's painful to deal with for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it's hurtful, but also because we as Muslims, whether we like it or not, are representing Islam. So when people come and see the Muslims being racist or misogynistic or anything like that, and by the way, don't think it's a coincidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that we come from males and females. He could have said, verily I created you. But he mentions, look, you came from both males and females, putting the status of the male and the female at an equal rank. Okay? So, but back to my point, we're living examples of what Muslims should be. That's what we should be striving towards. And whether we like it or not, when people see us, whether they're early Muslims or non-Muslims, when they see us acting, they look to us to determine how Muslims are. And it is disheartening and drives people away when they see Muslims being racist or Muslims being misogynistic or something like that. We need to be shining examples. We need to be like the Prophet ﷺ when they asked Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, the mother of the believers, when they asked her what was the character of the Prophet, and she said he was like a walking Quran. That's what we should be striving to be like the Prophet ﷺ. We should be striving to be like a walking Quran. And what does the Quran have to say about this issue? He says, verily we created you from men and women, and we've created you into different peoples, ethnicities or whatever, and different tribes, so that you may know one another, and that the best from amongst you are those who are the most pious. Level playing ground. This next verse kind of it's on a different topic, and it's still related because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about that the most noble from amongst us, the best from amongst us are the most pious. Then He addresses the Arab, the Bedouins again, just like He addressed them in Surah Fatih. And He addressed them on the issue of Iman. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا أَسْلَمْنَا وَلَمَّا يُدْخِلُ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُمْ مِنْ أَعْمَالِكُمْ شَيْئًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the Bedouins say, we are believers. Say, you do not believe. Say, I have submitted, as faith has not entered your hearts yet, and if you obey Allah and His Messenger, Allah will not diminish any of your reward for your deeds. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful. So, I want to clarify something. Most of the ulama say that these Bedouins were not hypocrites. They were not, most of them say, some of them said they were, but most of them say they were not hypocrites. So what were these Bedouins? They were people who had literally just taken the Shahada. They had just said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Right? And so you get a little bit of understanding of the situation. This was about a group of Bedouins who had come and they had taken their Shahada and they started kind of boasting about, look, now that we've taken Shahada, now we deserve some of this zakat stuff. Okay, because now we're believers. You know, we're great believers. We never fought you guys before, and we're not going to fight you guys now. We're going to follow you guys to the very end. So where's our zakat? That's kind of how the situation was. Because there was a famine at the time. So, and they started, boasting pretty quickly about all the great good deeds that they were going to be doing and that they were doing, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, look, slow down. You guys are saying we're believers, slow down. You're not believers yet. Belief hasn't entered into your hearts. The scholars, they define belief, right? This is a big discussion in like Aqidah, what's belief? But they define belief having three aspects. The first is al-iqrar bil-lisan, statement with the tongue, okay? That's the shahada, saying the shahada, right? Al-iqrar bil-lisan. Wat-tasdiq bil-janan, and affirming it in your hearts. That's the spiritual aspect. Believing it, actually believing it. Okay, not just, yeah, Allah is one. I can say that and it makes sense in my head. No, now you gotta act, you gotta believe it. And the third part goes hand in hand with that belief, because if you really believe it, وَالْعَمَلِ بِهِ, you're going to act accordingly. The three aspects of Iman. These are Allah, they had the first aspect. They said it. And Allahu A'lam, but I think they might have actually even rationally like, you know what, this Muhammad guy is probably a prophet. Right? This Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's probably a prophet. So if the rational and physical aspect of saying it, they probably did. But the belief part, the part in your heart, the part that requires you to actually sit down and do dhikr and to put an effort into the religion, that part, the part that requires fasting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says when he mandates fasting, he says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Fasting has been made mandatory upon you like it was mandatory upon those before you. Why? So that you may become people of taqwa, so that you may develop this taqwa, this God consciousness, this piety, right? It requires you to do things. You don't just say it and all of a sudden, mashallah, muttaqi, person of taqwa. No. It requires effort. That's why he says, tell them, right? Say to them, you haven't become, you haven't become believers. Say, I've submitted, aslamna, I've become a Muslim, I now submit to the rules. I've agreed to submit to the rules. And faith has not entered your hearts. The word for not in Arabic, there's a bunch of them. There's lam, three that are important. Lam, len, and lemma. Lem just means have not. You haven't done something. Len means you have not and will not. Right? And lemma means you haven't done it yet. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, He uses the word lemma. Iman has not entered your hearts yet. You still have the opportunity to become mu'mineen, to become believers. It just hasn't happened yet. And then he goes, if you obey Allah and His Messenger, you're going to be rewarded according to your actions. There's not going to be any decrease. You're going to be rewarded accordingly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues then by showing who the believers are. He says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله أولئك هم الصادقون. He says, verily, verily, the word is innama. Innama is for what's called in Arabic grammar, hasr. Hasr means to have the meaning of this and only this. So like, innama al-a'malu bin-niyat, actions are only judged according to their intentions. Or it could be more figurative, right? So it has two possibilities, but it has the literal meaning of just being this and only this. So, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, the believers are, this is who they are. The believers are those who believe in Allah and His Messenger, and then they do not waver, okay? They do not waver, and they strive with their money and their lives in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are the ones who are truthful, meaning truthful in their statement that we are believers. There are a few different three aspects that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions. He mentions believing, right? And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and even the Prophet ﷺ, when they mention belief, they're not meaning belief like theologians mean belief, like is this person orthodox or this person heterodox or so on and so on. No, they mean belief in terms of a spiritual belief, where they believe it mentally and they actually believe it in their hearts, and that it affects their actions, right? So they're the ones who believe and they don't waver. What does wavering mean? Did the Sahaba waver? Did they have doubts? The Sahaba definitely had doubts. One example of this is there was a Sahabi, I can't remember his name. He was in the masjid, and there was another Sahabi who was reciting. He was a Sahabi though that wasn't from Medina. He was from outside of Medina. And he was reciting Quran, and it was from a different qira'ah, right? It was from a different method of recital. And the Sahabi was like, hold up, I know how to recite the Quran. I've memorized the whole Quran, and I learned it from the Prophet ﷺ directly. This guy's saying it wrong. So he waited till he finished his salah, and he was like, hey, you said it wrong. This is how I heard it from the Prophet ﷺ. And the other Sahabi, the one who was reciting, said, no, you're saying it wrong. This is how I heard it from the Prophet ﷺ. And then they both went and they said, you know what? For us to continue to argue about this is pointless. Let's go to the Prophet ﷺ himself. And they went to the Prophet ﷺ and they explained their issue, and the Prophet ﷺ said, recite. Right? And they both recited. And the Prophet ﷺ heard the first Sahabi, the one who was listening at first, and he said, you're right. And he heard the other Sahabi, the one who was reciting, and he said, you're also right. And the first Sahabi, the one that was listening, he said his heart like shook. He's like, wait a minute. This is revelation from Allah. This is revelation from Allah. How can there be different ways? And so he had some doubt. But this is not doubt that in terms of believing that the Prophet ﷺ wasn't true. But it shook him. He was like, what's going on here? And then the Prophet ﷺ put his hand on his chest and he explained to him that the Quran was revealed in 7 ahruf. Right? And then there's a long discussion about what ahruf is, but that's in the ulum of Quran. We're not going to talk about that. Surah Tafseer and stuff. And he explains it to the Sahabi, and the Sahabi calms down, right? So, was he shaking? Was he affected? And did it kind of put a little bit of doubt in his mind? Yes. But he didn't doubt the truth of the Prophet ﷺ. He didn't doubt that what the Prophet ﷺ was saying was wrong, but he doubted what happened. What I thought was right the whole time was wrong. Like, what's going on? A confusion. Right? Confusion is not... There's nothing wrong with being confused. When he says, وَلَمْ يَرْتَابُوا, it means that they're not swinging back and forth between belief and disbelief. That's That's what لم يرتابوا means. And then the third thing, he tells them, وَجَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ. They struggle, they strive in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their money, with their wealth. And when means wealth. It doesn't just mean money. It means wealth. With their wealth and their physical bodies. A test, striving for the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it doesn't necessarily mean with weapons, okay? Just striving in the da'wah and it's many different different ways. Whether it's through calling to Islam, or whether it's anything, whether it's calling to Islam or calling people to righteousness. All of these things are aspects of jihad, right? All of these things, these are all under jihad. These are all tests to show the strength of the believer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to say, قُلْ أَتُعَلِّمُونَ اللَّهَ بِدِينِكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَاللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. He says, do you think you're informing Allah about your religion? And Allah knows what's in the heavens and what's in the earth. And Allah is He knows, and Allah is all-knowing. He knows everything. And I'll do the next ayah as well. يَمُنُّونَ عَلَيْكَ أَنْ أَسْلَمُوا قُلْ لَا تَمُنُّوا عَلَيَّ إِسْلَامَكُمْ بَلِ اللَّهُ يَمُنُّ عَلَيْكُمْ أَنْ هَدَاكُمْ لِلْإِيمَانِ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't think you're doing me a favor. Don't think you they think they're doing you a favor when they become Muslims in their Islam, right? Say to them, you're not doing me any favors with your Islam. Rather, Allah is giving you a favor that He has guided you towards belief. If you are truthful in the fact that you believe. So, there's two aspects here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is first saying, you guys are boasting, about your belief. What are you boasting for? Who are you trying to inform? Are you trying to inform me and the Prophet ﷺ about your iman when I know everything in the heavens and the earth? Okay, there's no point in you boasting. If you're truly believers, you'll get what you deserve. And then there was a sort of thinking that some of the Arab Bedouins and tribes kind of had, where they were doing the Prophet ﷺ a favor by becoming Muslim. Look, we'll become Muslims, now that's something good for you. Because now there's more of the Muslims to help you. It's no. The Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Muslims in general, they don't need you to become Muslims. You need to become Muslim. You need guidance. They don't need you to be guided. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there could be not a single Muslim in the entire earth. It wouldn't diminish anything from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's greatness. Right? So, realize, listen, this is something good for you. It's not something good for us. It's not something that's meant for, we're not trying to get something out of you. You're trying to get something out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding you. And we should keep this in mind, especially because it can be disheartening when we are calling people that what matters is the effort with which we put. In Surah Baqarah, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He says regarding those who are bent on disbelief, right? He said, as for those who are disbelievers, سواء عليهم, regardless of whether you warn them or you don't warn them, they're not going to believe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a veil, ختم الله على قلوبهم, over their hearts, وعلى سمعهم, and over their ears, and in front of their eyes is a curtain. And for them is a great punishment. Right? Now what does this mean? These people are bent on denying. And they strive towards denying. Just like there are people who are searching for belief, there are people they're just bent on refusing. And the more the more bent they are on disbelief, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further pushes them down. Because they're physically striving not to listen. They plug their ears, or they turn away, or they try to shut you down. Remember, these are things that Prophet ﷺ dealt with the whole time. And how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calm him down? He says, look, belief is not in your hands. What you need to do is merely warn them, inform them. And then it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and up to them whether or not they want to believe. Right? So just sort of, especially for people in the da'wah, it can be very disheartening. Because it's not easy work. But just remember, it's in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands, and what matters is the effort, and you're rewarded according to your effort. That's one of the beautiful aspects of Islam. You're rewarded according to your effort. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes the chapter. He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ غَيْبَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاللَّهُ بَصِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. He says, verily Allah knows what is hidden in the heavens and the earth, and Allah is seeing of what you do. What a way to end a chapter that is about, pretty much in its entirety, about etiquette and how we're supposed to act. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes, after I've told you what you're supposed to do, remember this: I see everything. I know everything that happens, even the hidden things. And I see everything that you're doing. Just like why do we clothe ourselves? Right? Why do we clothe? It's because we're ashamed. Well, that's what we should be clothing ourselves. It's because we are ashamed to go out, unclothed. Why do when we commit disgusting acts, or we commit sins, why do we try to hide them? It's because we're ashamed. We should also be ashamed, not only from our fellow brothers and sisters from seeing it, and that's a good thing to be ashamed. It's a good thing. But we should also be ashamed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching, and that the angels are recording. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding us, and He's paying attention to us and seeing everything that we do, and we should be ashamed that we are disobeying Him, especially after all of the beautiful things He has given us, all of the different ni'mas in our sight, our bodies, our clothing, our houses, everything, the earth and how it's so perfectly made, and the universe and how all its balance and gravity and rotations and distances and all these things that we find in science and all of these beautiful blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, that He created this beautiful universe for us. Right? We should be ashamed that the person who's done all of this for us, that we're so ungrateful to Him and that we disobey Him. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.